Hey everybody, it's Erin and I'm here to do a May wrap up for you. May wrap up. Here we go. So I read 8 of the 10 books that I had drawn last month. I did not get a reward, unfortunately, but hopefully June will work out a little bit better. Let's look at the ones that I did read though. I started off the month with a graphic novel, and that is Monsters Volume 2 by Marjorie Liu. This has another stunning cover. The artwork on this is some of my favorite because every picture is incredibly detailed and just beautiful. We follow Mariko, who's the main character, the girl on the front, and she's trying to find out more about her mother, and all of the world is looking for her. So she travels to an island that people don't really come back from and learns a lot about her background and who she is. The lore in this series is incredible. In the first book, I did struggle a little bit because there was so much going on and not a lot of background given, and I felt like I couldn't quite piece the story together. This book definitely helped with that. If you're planning on reading this, I would plan on reading volume 1 and 2 kind of back to back because it does give you a good look at the story. I do think one of the things I struggle with in this series so far is that there are a lot of point of views considering how short it is. It can be very hard to keep track of who's who and where they stand in this story. I did give it a 4 out of 5. If you like a mix of cute and gory, this story is going to be perfect from you because you get the cute little cats, but you also have the terrifying bloody monsters. Book number 2 last month was Sammy Keys and the Cold Hard Cash by Wendelin Van Dranen. So we follow a girl living with her grandma in secret, and she finds a guy who's dying, and he asks her to get rid of a wad of cash, and of course she doesn't, but a lot of issues come with just having a bunch of money all of a sudden, and it turns her into someone she doesn't necessarily like. This was a surprisingly intriguing and good mystery. I did like the plot of it. I liked the dynamic with all the friends. However, there was one aspect of this book that I couldn't really stand, and because of it, I probably won't be keeping this. I'm going to plan on unhauling it. That involved a lot of fat shaming. One of the neighbors is depicted as an obese lady who can't really do anything on her own, keeps like falling off the toilet and getting stuck. There's a lot of bad jokes in this book, which was really disappointing because I think everything else about this book is something I would want in my classroom and for a kids book. But unfortunately, I'm going to unhaul this. All right, I went from that to The Assassin's Game by Christy McKay. This is another book I plan on unhauling. It starts off with a girl who's going to a high school where it's all like gifted genius artsy types. She gets invited to take part of a game that happens every year called the Assassin's Game, where the assassin tries to pretend to kill off other members, and you gotta figure out who it is before they get to you. Unfortunately, actual murders start happening. I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of good things to say about this. It had a somewhat intriguing mystery, and that was really the reason I finished it instead of DNFing it, is because I did want to know who the assassin was. However, I don't think it was a good wrap up to even make it worth finishing. My main issue was that there was just every character was unlikable and they weren't supposed to be. You had the main girl who was just very meh, not really there, and all of the main guy characters had horrible personalities. You had a teacher who was very unprofessional, had an unprofessional like friendship with the girl. You had a best friend who wanted her and tried to force himself on her, and she just kind of like halfway dealt with it. And you had a best friend who showed up and was very stalkery and very creepy, and the main character even says he's really creeping me out, and then like 2-3 chapters later she was in love with him. The behavior hadn't changed, she was just okay with it now. Even the side characters were all very stereotypical, like mean girls and jocks, so there was no likable characters and very like borderline problematic characters, to be honest. So definitely unhauling this, not worth the read, and I should not have struggled through it. I should have DNF'd this one, but here we are. So after those two not that great books, I picked up Martha Wells' Artificial Condition. This is book 2 in the Murderbot series. It follows Murderbot as they try to learn more about their past, and one of the big moments in their past that kind of is still a mystery to them because their memory of it has been somewhat erased. And I don't know that I loved it as much as the first one, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it and definitely think it's a good follow-up. I wish it had been longer. That's kind of my qualm with this one. I just always want a full fleshed out story with these. I'm excited to get to the point where we actually get the full novel, but in this you do meet a second AI character that calls themselves Art, and I loved the interactions between Art and Murderbot because it was so beautifully awkward and amazing. If you like unique sci-fi, I definitely recommend this series. It's very relatable in just a self-deprecating kind of way. And I did give this 4.25 stars. Okay, Priest was up next. This is by Matthew Colville, who has a channel where he does D&D stuff and talks about his books and his campaigns. I'll try and link that below. I think I forgot last time. I gave it 4 stars. It is surprisingly dark, but really good. It took me a little bit to get into because the writing style is pretty lean, and if you're used to like heavy fantasy, it can feel a little lacking at first, but the plot was really great. So in this you have that cranky retired character who doesn't want to be part of the story but kind of gets put to the story anyway. So Hayden is called upon to solve a murder among an order of knights, and the knights would rather take their secrets to their grave. They're not about him at all, and it could lead to disaster for basically the whole kingdom, because these knights protect the kingdom from the Woad, which is like a magical forest. So if their order falls, who knows what's going to happen. The ending blew me away. Not exactly what I wanted, but still just awesome, and I definitely recommend this book. It's a self-published book, so if you're looking for a good self-published fantasy series, I'm hoping to read the second book, Thief, this month, but the first one worth looking into. 2 of my kids' books were up next. The first one was Judy Moody. This is book 1. Judy Moody was in a mood, not a good mood, a bad mood. I did actually like this one a lot more than I thought. I thought it was going to be just kind of a generic kids series, but I do think there's a lot of good stuff in this book. One of the main things that I liked is that Judy, the main character, is not portrayed as super girly. She likes playing in the mud, picking up frogs. She collects like scabs. So it just provides kind of that alternative to a lot of what I see with the kids books that I have where the girls are super girly. In this one, Judy is moving up, I think, to 2nd grade maybe, and she's not excited about it because she likes her old teacher a lot. She doesn't really know what to expect with the new teacher. She doesn't know if she's going to get to sit with her best friend. So she's just kind of hesitant about the start of this new school year. If you're looking for a solid series for kids, this is a good starter book. Another one that kind of surprised me, because this was actually my lowest star prediction prompt, was Family Reminders. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. We have a dad that gets hurt in a mining accident and kind of falls into a depression. The daughter's struggling to understand it. She doesn't understand why her dad doesn't want to sing or dance or play the piano anymore. They're struggling for money since he's out of a job, and so she kind of takes it upon herself to find a solution. I was expecting to be a little bit bored with just kind of like the family stories, historical fiction. I thought there would be like a lack of plot, but I think it did a really good job of looking at like a good family dynamic in a dark time and how they all dealt with it, how they all got through it. I think it's a good look for younger kids at families who are struggling and what that might look like. It does have a happy ending. I think it also gave a very realistic depiction of hard times in a family. Okay, so I finished the month with a NetGalley arc that I was pretty excited about, but ended up DNFing. That is Last One at the Party. I kind of was hesitant to give so many negative thoughts about a NetGalley arc because I do appreciate being chosen to read these books, but I also want to give an honest review. So I'm going to do that here. Came out in May. People might be looking to this, and I just want to be very clear about why I DNF'd. In this, the premise of the book is that there was a pandemic that wiped out everybody, and you have a lone survivor who is trying to see if there is actually anybody else out there. It sounded like a good premise, especially because the tagline talks about a golden retriever companion, and I thought that sounded super cute. I did DNF at 65%. I wanted to get far enough into it to really see if anything kind of changed. The main character is by herself. She's really one of the only characters that you get to see. She has an addiction problem. She talks a lot about her loveless marriage, about her friend who is struggling also with addiction. I don't even really know how to describe how unlikable she is other than like a few moments. This is a little bit of a spoiler. She eventually decides to start saving animals because she can hear them like barking and whining in people's houses, and so she goes into houses to try and free them, which is how she gets her dog. But she does like 6 houses and then decides she's had enough and like can't take it anymore. And she never treats her dog very kindly. Like several times she just considers leaving the dog because he's like too much of a hassle. My second struggle was the lack of plot. I thought it would be like a survival story or a journey to find another survivor, and there are hints of that. Most of it is her just going to do mundane life things as the only person or having flashbacks. So there are several chapters where she's just drinking in a hotel. There's a chapter where she goes to a museum. And I think those two things really highlighted the third issue which was there seemed to be like no research or like checking that things lined up. She's in London, and there's one part where she said she sees a car every 100 miles, which like England is not that many 100 miles long or across anyway. And then she said she finally stopped at a town. I can't remember the name of the town, but I looked it up and it was only 60 miles away from London. So that didn't really check out. There were decomposing bodies that didn't match, didn't make sense with just like how death works. There was one time where there was a blizzard and she was stuck in a house for several days, and the snow was up to like the top of her thighs, almost her waist, and then it rained, and the next day the snow was completely gone and there was green grass. I didn't enjoy it. It could still be something to check out. It does follow more of like a character study-ish, like what would you do at the end of the world if you were alone? More character than plot, I would say. So take that as you will. But yeah, that book was how I finished the month. Not really what I wanted for this month. I did really like Priest. I really liked Monstrous. I even really liked some of the kids' book, but none of them turned out to be like a new favorite. So here is my stack. I am getting rid of these two here, unhauling those. I hope y'all had a good reading month. It's like halfway through June at this point, so I hope June is going well for you. I'm excited to finally get on summer break, and I will see y'all later. Bye, guys.